Hi everyone, welcome to another video in the Becoming Me series. Today I'm talking with the lovely Naomi. Thank you for joining me today. How are you?
I'm good, thanks, Maria. How are you?
Wonderful. So this is a series where we're talking to real women who have had real struggles, as I think all women do, but we've managed to find something that's helped us let go of the biggest of our struggles to become the people that we want to become, to be able to let go of the stuff, the noise in our head, the pain in our heart that can stop us from living our full best life. And the becoming is a journey that is never ending, but we're doing the best that we can and we continue to move forward. So tell us a bit about yourself, Naomi. What was your biggest struggle before Creatrix?
My biggest struggle, probably the thing that drove me to want to change the most, was my anger. I was a really angry mum. I had a really difficult relationship with my daughter. I've got a 17-year-old daughter. So much so that when she was 12, we sent her to boarding school because I just couldn't cope anymore. She absolutely did my head in. Even just sometimes the sight of her would be enough to piss me off. Like she just instantly, her presence, because she used to feel like she was always pecking away at me, constantly. And when you've constantly got that kind of aggravation, it just, then you see the thing pecking at you and you're like, get away, you know. So that was really, really difficult for me, having such a difficult relationship with her. And she was in boarding school, and then I've always helped my husband run his business since we got married. And we had a bit of a crisis in our business where for the third time a shop fitter went broke on us, not paying us a large sum of money. And I'd been putting everything into this business, trying to make it a success. And even though she was in boarding school and my anger was a lot better, when all that stress hit, I found myself getting really angry even with the younger kids who had always been quite patient with. And that was, to me, a sign that, you know what, I've had enough of this. I've had enough of living my life for everyone else and doing what I'm supposed to do. I don't want to be angry anymore. I want to feel good. I want to do something I enjoy. Something's got to give. And that's when I started looking at what I could do to help myself to feel better, because I also really wanted to help others. But I couldn't while I was an angry mum. So that's where, I started looking what can help me. And I started mindfulness meditation, and I started looking at different things to study that might help me. But my biggest struggle was definitely the anger, and it was just ridiculous. It was over the top. Like, I'd get pissed off because one of my daughter's jobs was to empty the dishwasher, and she'd put the containers away wet. So I'd be in a hurry every morning to pack the lunches and get out the door on time. And I'd go to put, crackers in these containers and they'd be wet. And I'd just, like a, roaring dragon, I'd be like, I'd scream, at my poor daughter, who didn't deserve that kind of reaction for such a small thing. But that's the kind of thing, the smallest thing she would do would just set me off. And I felt a bit like a crazy lady, but I literally had no control. Once the anger was there, I couldn't stop. I just couldn't stop. And I often said things that I regretted. And look, they weren't terrible, but they were bad enough. It had to change. I just couldn't go on like that anymore.
And I'm sure there are women there'd be some that don't understand, but there would be a lot that understand this. I know it's happening, but I can't stop it anyway. I know with me, I talk about the fact that I had grief and sadness and all of this, but the pain that was inside, it ended up coming out as anger. I can remember, I was managing a motel and I was checking in these lovely people who'd come away for a weekend, and I was literally yelling at them. They'd done nothing, absolutely nothing, but my voice, my tone, my body language, everyone was saying I was the crankiest person in the world. for a while I wasn't aware of it. Then I did become aware of it, but both ways I still couldn't stop it from coming out.
Yeah, and
yeah, I was going to say,
my
it causes
husband,
a lot of other stuff, doesn't it? A lot of other emotions, because then you feel guilty and you feel bad about yourself. And
I felt like the worst person in the world. Like, I felt like the worst mum in the world because of that, especially because of that lack of affection that I had for my daughter as well. Because it's always been a difficult relationship with her since birth. Like, it's always like she's been screaming at me and wanting of me, that, and wanting in a way that I just couldn't give. And that was just really difficult, but I didn't know what to do. And it did come out. And my husband would often say, you know, calm down. And I go, this is calm. You should see how I feel on the inside.
yeah,
This is calm, because that, and so, but he would even say on days where I thought I felt okay, all the time he'd say, what's wrong? And I go, nothing's wrong. And he'd go, you're acting like you're angry. I'm not angry. I'm just trying to get this stuff done. You know, and that was the kind of thing he had to deal with. So then I wasn't just angry, I was defensive. But, you know, after looking into it more deeply, the anger, and when we had that issue with the business and everything, it felt like my whole world was crumbling down around me. What I realized was I was living my life for everyone else. I wasn't doing anything I wanted to do. I constantly felt guilty. I couldn't speak up and say the things that I wanted to say. So everything was internalized. And because of all of those other things, it was coming out as anger.
Yes. Yeah. And for a lot of us, like your husband was, you know, saying what was wrong when you didn't think there was anything, it is noticeable to other people, even when we think we've got a lid on it. You know, I'm coping, I'm hiding, I'm dealing, and yet other people can notice it, they can feel it, they can see it in our face. So it is affecting other people, even though we think we might have a lid on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So how long ago did you release all of that? How long ago did you have that breakthrough?
About 2 years ago now.
Okay, so tell us about what you've noticed and how your relationships have changed over the last 2 years.
Well, what I've noticed is, I'll go into a little bit of the history and what I have come to realise, because I'm one of 7 kids, 5 of which are girls.
Okay.
And all of us girls sound angry even if we're not. And it's always kind of been joked about that it's the Croatian thing. It's the Croatian in us. You know, our dad's really angry, and it's just how we talk. But what I noticed in particular was this relationship with the firstborn. So like I said, I've got 4 other sisters, and every single one of them has a difficult relationship with their firstborn, where they, like, one sister used to say about her son, oh, he wants a hug and I love him, but I just can't I just don't want him near me. I can't stand it. I don't want him to touch me. And then another one, when she had her baby, lots of other people looked after him, and she even, you know, as he got older, had that difficult relationship with him. And then my youngest sister, she has 2 little ones now. They're 13 months apart, like my boys are. And same thing, the older one's her daughter, and then she's got the son. And the son's just this perfect little baby, and she just adores being with him. But with the daughter, it's the same thing. It's like, oh, what do you want? Get away from me type of feeling. So then I asked my mum about it, because I know my mum and my oldest sister have a difficult relationship. And it's never really been healed. So I said to mum, you know, what's this thing between you and the eldest? And she goes, oh, I don't know. It's just, she's just always been difficult and whatever. And I said, what was your mum like with her firstborn? And she goes, oh, that was terrible. Like that, she wouldn't even tell me the details of how bad that relationship with her mother and her mum's firstborn was. So what I've come to realise is that this was actually a pattern that was in our bloodline, like this was in our family, and I didn't actually see it till later, which was really interesting. So this realisation only came about 6 months ago, when once I dealt with my stuff and I could see everything clearly.
Yeah, when you've got none of that emotion, you are able to see a lot more and in a different perspective. So
Yeah.
So there could have been a trauma for a mother and firstborn somewhere, who knows, 10 generations, 20 generations, something, and it's played out in every generation of women since.
Yeah.
Incredible.
And so what I've noticed in terms of my relationship with my daughter since I've been able to address my issues around my relationship with her is, before, she felt like an inconvenience and I couldn't stand her and I didn't want to be around her and I couldn't understand her. I couldn't see her perspective. I couldn't put myself in her shoes.
Yep.
After I let go of my issues around that, I was finally able to see her as the individual that she is, who needs love and acceptance and everything that we all need as humans. And I was able to see her little life from her perspective and what she'd been through in her life, because it hasn't all been smooth sailing for her, and everyone she's ever been really close to has disappeared from her life in some way, and that's a little pattern that she continues to play out for her.
Yeah.
But I'm now able to really see her and hear her. And in the past, I would have just defended myself. Well, she needed to go to boarding school. She was doing this and she was doing that. And, it's all her issue before. Whereas now I'm able to go, you know what? There's this little girl who is just desperate for my love and attention that I just didn't have the capacity to give her when she needed it. And the difference between before and now is I have the capacity. So when she was in boarding school, people would say, oh, that must be hard. You must miss her. And I'd go, no, I really don't. Whereas she no longer lives at home now, unfortunately. But I miss her.
Yeah.
I wish she was here.
Yeah.
I want to spend time with her. I want to be with her and get to know her better and understand her and have that close relationship with her.
Yeah.
Whereas before, I didn't even want that.
Yeah.
So that is the massive shift that I have had through having my breakthrough with Creatrix and really being able to address those issues around how I felt about my daughter. So it's big.
It's big. And I guess with you now reaching out and having that love and having that, you could change how your daughter doesn't repeat that pattern with her daughter, because you've become aware of it and addressed it.
Yeah, and I've actually had this conversation with her now, which is why I'm able to talk about it now, is because we've been able to have this conversation, and because she's been able to say, well, you know what, I felt unwanted, I felt unloved, I felt like an inconvenience, I felt like a burden. And I've been able to say, well, you know what, rightly so, because that's probably that's how I treated you, and I didn't want to, and I didn't mean to, and I felt really awful about it, but this is the pattern I've noticed in my family, and it's important you understand this is a pattern, because I don't want this to happen when you have your kids. So if you recognize it and understand it now, this is something that you'll be able to work on if it comes up for you. So then we've also been able to have that dialogue around it, and hopefully when she becomes a mum, when this kind of thing is maybe activated within her, she knows that there's something she can do about it, and she's not going to go through that kid's whole life not knowing what to do like I did. And it was awful, and I felt guilty. I felt like a bad mum. I felt heartless, I just felt like there was something wrong with me.
Yeah.
And it wasn't. We're all always doing the best that we can with what we've got, but it's so good now to have that understanding around it, but to be able to have that healing so that I can see her, and so that we can have these conversations and now try to work on that relationship without me having all my stuff.
Yeah. And before you had Creatrix, you didn't realise there was a pattern. You didn't realise this was what was happening. You just knew that you felt different with her than you did with the others, but it eventually went down to them as well. So there'd be women out there who may not see a pattern running as yet, but they may know that they are doing or being or feeling something that they don't necessarily want to feel. There is a solution to that, isn't there? You don't have to stay in that place where, you know, you're lashing out, you're angry, but then that makes you feel like a bad mum. It makes you feel guilty. It makes you feel like there's something wrong with you. And it doesn't necessarily just mean with anger, because, you know, that comes with sadness, and it comes with depression, it comes with anxiety, it comes with everything, that you then feel guilty and you then feel like there's something wrong with you. And it just piles on, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. And you don't need to recognize it as a pattern that runs in your family. If you know you're feeling a certain way and you don't want to feel like that anymore, well then, you know, look into it, get some help for it, because the thing especially that I love about Creatrix is you don't have to feel like that anymore. You just don't, you know, if you're struggling as a mum and it's really hard for you, and you've totally lost touch with yourself, and you feel guilty and you feel all that stuff that a lot of mums feel. But if it's really hard for you, know that there's something out there that can help you, and know that you don't have to be stuck like that. Like a lot of people think, oh, well, motherhood's just hard and that's the way it is. I'm here to tell you that motherhood for me now is way easier. Like it's just, nothing's an issue anymore. We figure stuff out. Like we've got the patience and the resilience and the emotional intelligence to get through anything. So there's nothing that really happens that sets me off anymore, because I just don't have those issues anymore. And motherhood comes with its challenges, but it's not the struggle that it was before, you know. So there's definitely help, and you don't have to stay feeling like that. Absolutely not.
The thing that annoys me when I see the posts on is that it has to be hard. You have to put in the work. You have to be on it day after day after day. I had a client this morning and she had rage. So, you know, women can name it 100 different ways: anger, fury, rage, pissed off, you know, mad, whatever it is, you know, you can work through it with Creatrix. And 90 minutes, we did 3, so about 30 minutes for this it was rage that she would just go off on anyone who was around her, especially her partner. And she was aware that she was doing it but couldn't stop herself as well. But, you know, to see her after and the learnings that come through, and we did the card test, that before and after, where you've got that different perspective. Her whole world shifted in that 90-minute session this morning, and I can't wait to hear how her partner spends the week when she's not raging at him.
Yeah, it's going to make a massive difference for her and for her partner. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no more guilt for her for, you know, going off when she knows she shouldn't. And yeah, he's just going to see the woman he fell in love with, because she wasn't that when they started their relationship. So it doesn't have to be hard, and it doesn't have to take forever. It doesn't have to take constant conscious effort, does it? Because we're working at such a deeper level. And the reason why it's working so well and so deeply, I think, is because it's a female specific thing. We're getting it at that deep need that we have. You know, we're different. Our emotions are so different. They're so much more intense because of the cycle we have, because of all the hormones that we have. And how is your partner now? What does he say about how much you've changed? Because, like you said, he could see it even when you couldn't.
Yeah, I mean, he's a lot happier. He no longer says, I feel like I'm married to a butcher's wife, which is something he used to say all the time.
Was he worried you'd run around with him with the...
I don't know what the analogy with that. Yeah, apparently they scream, but because I would just scream. And I don't scream anymore. I have more patience. I have yeah, I'm just better able to deal with things as they come up, and I'm not going off my tree over stupid little things. So yeah,
Mm.
it's been really good for us. I mean, he never used to really cop my anger. It was always my daughter.
Yeah.
And there are times I still get a little bit impatient or a bit cranky or a bit short with the kids, but it's usually always only just before my period. So it's nothing, like it's nothing compared to what it was before Creatrix.
Yeah.
It's just a normal bit of moodiness that every woman gets around the
Yeah.
time of her period, but
Yeah.
there's not that raging or screaming or going off. That feeling of the anger coming up, and then the head feeling like it's about to explode, and the steam coming out of the ears. It just doesn't happen anymore. Like, it just doesn't. But yeah, I still get cranky with the kids, especially when they're not listening. But that's when I should be getting a bit cranky and setting those boundaries and saying, this is what you need to do. So, but I now have the patience and the logical thinking ability to be able to work through those situations in that kind of way where I can have those conversations. Whereas before, the emotion would just take over. I had no control over it, and I would just react. And it would take me so long to calm down, but those conversations would never happen.
Never happen.
Those boundaries would never be set. So it just has such a big ripple effect into all the different aspects of your life. And even, you might think something might really make you a bit angry, and you go, hang on a second, there's no point getting angry. And you let it go, and then you just deal with it. And I didn't have the capacity to do that before either, because that emotion would take over. So now the emotion might rise briefly, but nowhere near like what it used to. Then I can let it go, and I can work towards some type of solution or some way of preventing that problem from being a problem in the future.
So you're explaining to them why you got angry, what the solution is, how we can move through it forward. So you're teaching them skills at the same time, where before, if as kids do, they just follow you, they just would have been angry people as well, because they wouldn't have had any other knowledge of any other way to be.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so they're learning a whole lot as well.
Yeah. All of your emotions ripple through to how they feel and how they live, and how they feel supported and now understood. Yeah.
So it's just been amazing. Like, honestly, it's absolutely life-changing, the difference that it's made, and just that internal happiness, because so much of it was internalized. Like I said, my husband would say, oh, calm down, and I'd be like, this is calm. So he actually had no idea to what extent I did feel angry.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah. You're only showing a little bit above the surface, the iceberg.
That's right. But I don't get that internal anger. He doesn't come up to me anymore and say, what's wrong? Because I'm just so much happier than I was before.
Yeah. So it's affected all areas of your life. Getting rid of that stuff has made you feel better within you, not just the relationships and everything, but you and your relationship with yourself, not feeling that guilt or any of that other stuff anymore.
Yeah, I feel peace in my body. And that's something I didn't have before. Like, I feel peaceful, I feel calm, I feel I feel happy with life. I just feel good. And that's something, I used to say it wouldn't have mattered before, like with that financial situation that we went through and everything. It probably wouldn't have even mattered if we won lotto, because I still would have been stuck being me. I still would have been stuck feeling the way that I felt. And no amount of money was going to be able to make that go away. No amount of having an easier life was going to make that go away, because that was within me. So to be able to be, have and be in the same situation we were 3 years ago. Obviously, we got through that rough patch and business is still ticking along for my husband. Life's pretty much the same, but it just feels so much better.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't have the weight of the world weighing you down.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I guess 2 years on, you still feel like it's lasted. It's not something that you've gone backwards. You feel yourself falling back into that same way. Everything keeps moving forward. You've found that that's lasted. You are just growing into the new best version of yourself every day that changes and it goes forwards instead of back.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's been no slipping back into those old behaviors. Like I said, I can't even, it's been so long since I have felt that it almost feels like a distant memory, because it's just not something that happens anymore. And that's 2 years on, so it definitely lasts. And I am definitely stepping forward and, pursuing the things that are important to me and living up to that person that I want to be as well, because that was probably one of the biggest things that was so difficult for me before, was because I knew I was capable of being better and I was always trying to be better. I was reading all the books, listening to all the podcasts, doing the meditation, trying to be this better version of myself, but then this roaring dragon would come on out and say hello all the time. Now I feel like I'm being the truly authentic version of myself and living up to what I always wanted for myself, living up to what I want to help other women achieve as well. So it's been amazing.
Yeah, and it's something that is there. It's not something that, like you were just working all of those things. You're not working at it every day. You do a little bit of tweaking every now and then. Obviously, new stuff comes up, things happen in life, but you don't have to work so hard to be this new version of yourself.
No, I don't have to work hard at it at all, because it's just who I am now.
Yeah, who. That's it, isn't it? It's a knowing, it's a who I am, and that's amazing. So I don't know how to phrase this next. How, thinking about where you were and where you are now, what would it be worth to you? Like if you hadn't have done that, how bad do you think life would be now? Like what would be, is it worth what you went through to get to where you are now?
Absolutely. If I didn't do this, I wouldn't be healing that relationship with my daughter. We'd probably be estranged. I would 90% likely be divorced or separated at this point. I was, because I was so unhappy within myself, I would just be miserable at the moment, like especially trying all that stuff and then it not working. That becomes quite you become quite disillusioned and you think, well, there must be something really wrong with me, because I'm doing all this stuff, I'm practicing all this stuff, but I'm still so messed up, so you can't put a price on how I feel now compared to how I felt. Like it's just so worth it. Like I've not looked back. It's been the best thing I've ever done for myself.
Yeah.
It has paid off 10 times over. Like boarding school, I don't know if anyone knows how much that costs, but if I had this before my daughter went to boarding school, we wouldn't have needed boarding school.
Yeah.
So I would have saved about $100,000 in school fees, had I had this before, but I didn't know it existed.
Yeah.
So I could have had it earlier. I could have healed that relationship with my daughter earlier and all of that. And I wish I knew about it, and I wish I could have done something back then, but I probably wasn't quite ready then. But yeah, I think the sooner you can get on top of your issues so that you can improve the relationships with your kids and have those good relationships, the effect of that is priceless. Like,
Yeah.
it is so worth putting yourself first. And then once you do that, whether it's to deal with your emotional stuff, that's great, but then it becomes a practice. So I have a regular practice of putting myself first, you know, for the benefit of the family. Like, you know, yesterday afternoon I went and did a 2-hour restorative yoga class because that's what makes me feel nice, and I do that once a month. And those self-care practices are built into my life now, so that I can show up as the best version of myself for the kids.
Yeah.
So it is so worth doing because everyone benefits for the long term, you know.
And it's something like you were saying before, that you'd done so many things, and I know I did so many things as well. And when each of them didn't work, it was internalized as what's wrong with me. Everyone else must be succeeding. You know, these people are still going to these courses or these programs and buying these books and everything else. It must just be me. So all of these things that don't work are causing so many women to feel bad about themselves. That's the thing that gets me, where this is so fast and so simple, and the results are so lasting and so freeing, and so, I don't know, I can't get the smile off my face after seeing, you know, the client this morning 90 minutes later, and, you know, this shift that it's awesome, isn't it? You know that experience.
It's the best feeling ever. It really is, because you know that they're going to be walking into the rest of their life a better person and feeling good about themselves, you know. Like, it's just the best. And that's probably, like I said, my biggest thing is you don't need to feel like that anymore, and this does work, you know. I would say don't waste your time expecting those other things to completely address those types of issues, because they can't.
They can't.
You
Nothing at
really
that
need,
conscious level is going to make a change, is it?
no, you need that help. You need that person to work with you to help you get to the root of it so that you can let it go. And you need the right method, because I did Reiki type healing for ages. I did forms of psychotherapy. I did psychology, counseling. I tried everything, and I'm an avid self-help book reader and listener. You know, so all of that stuff is great knowledge, and I don't discourage anyone from getting that wonderful knowledge, because that's the stuff you can use ongoingly. But to address those deep patterns of behavior that are so automatic, they're too hard to consciously change. That's where Creatrix is that's the easiest way to address it, so that you can then apply that other knowledge in a way that works for you.
That's right. That other knowledge all comes in handy and really helpful once you've pulled the roots out of all of that really deep, painful stuff, and it can help you, you know, become better in any area that you choose, where before it's that emotion that's just going to keep you stuck, or that the beliefs, you know, the beliefs that you can have that you're just not, I'm not good enough, or I'm not smart enough, or whatever it might be. You know, if you've got that, it's always going to be, you know, pushing you backwards until you get rid of them.
Yeah. And like, what I love about Creatrix, with the belief like I'm not good enough, so many people who use these other methods, they're like, oh yeah, I'm always working on that. Once you've worked on it, it's done. Like, you will never not feel good enough again. Like, it's gone. You know you're good enough in every fibre of your being, and you would never question that again.
No.
And that's the difference that it makes. So it's not this ongoing working on it and talking yourself through it.
Every day.
It's gone.
Affirmations and all of that constant stuff. 30 minutes, boom, done.
Done. Like, and that's what I love about how easy it is, especially with those beliefs. It's completely cleans them out. And then you don't need to do positive affirmations because your self-talk is automatically
positive. Yeah.
So there's no need for that affirmation because now it's within you and you know it.
Yeah.
So that's the power of Creatrix for beliefs. It's amazing.
Yeah. And thank you so much for coming on and sharing, because I hope that, you know, the women who see these can see so many different women talking about so many different stories. We all have stories. We all have our own story. We have all had some kind of struggle in the past that's got us to where we are. We didn't stay stuck. We didn't want to be there. We wanted something more. So we searched and we tried everything else before we found it. But I want to help other women not have to go through all of those different things. Come to this first, do this, get all the shit gone, and then you can go on and have this joyful, positive, happy, successful life.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, don't stop trying. Always keep trying and keep moving forward. But if you want something that's going to work, that's going to be fast, that's so worth it, that's easy, Creatrix is definitely your number one step. And then all that other stuff also, you hear it differently and it clicks in a different way and you actually get it far more than you ever did before.
There was just so much stuff. It's like, you know, your head was full of cement and nothing else could get in there. Nothing could grow because it was just cement.
Exactly.
Now that it's fertile soil, you can grow all of this beautiful new wisdom. I don't know. I've only just thought that. I don't know if it makes any sense, but
it does, absolutely, because the other stuff is layering over the muck that's in there, right? So you're constantly trying to layer over it, but then the muck bubbles up. So if you get rid of all that muck and then you can plant all those beautiful seeds of wisdom and knowledge in there, then everything just flows more effortlessly and you're not, that muck isn't coming up and wrecking all the effort you're putting in.
Yeah.
Does that
we
make
do.
sense?
There's so many women who put so much effort and don't get anything, and that's why, you know, they feel like, well, it's got to be me. The problem is me. It's the tools.
It's the tools, yeah. And Creatrix by far is the most effective tool I've ever tried and the most long-lasting. Like, you can get some relief temporarily from other things, but the problem always comes back. So you might feel better for a week or two, but then you've, like I used to find I was always cycling back into that old behaviour.
Yeah.
So if you want to address that cycle so that you can just create a new way for yourself, well then Creatrix, you know, is definitely the way. And I love how it's formulated so specifically for women, and it makes such a profound, lasting difference to us.
Yeah, and whether you know it or not, it will break cycles that could have been occurring for generations.
Exactly.
Yeah, breaking the cycle to start with. And if you haven't had kids, like the 25-year-old I had today, you know, none of this is going to be passed down. She's getting rid of all the stuff that could possibly affect any kids that she'll have in the future, which is even better.
Yeah, that's amazing. If you can get in before kids, even better. But if you can't, don't feel guilty, because you can also know and rest peacefully in the knowledge that through you becoming a better person and you developing higher emotional intelligence, you can then teach that to those kids. And then, like my daughter, if they have issues when they're older, when they're ready, you know the right tool for them to use to break those cycles as well. So they're not going to have to go until they're 30 or 40 figuring it out themselves. You will know what's going to best help them, and you'll be able to lead them to that, so that they don't carry on those cycles as well.
Yeah. Well, I love making ripples, helping women, changing lives, and I hope this conversation that we've just had helps one woman. We've done something amazing here today. So thank you so much, Naomi, for getting on and chatting with me. I really appreciate it, and we will end it there. Thank you.
Thanks, Maria.